people get off on bigotry, intolerance, and racial intolerance.
Hello, Bezel333 here. I want to comment on an article I ran across. It was called 3 Questions About Rick Warren's Role in the Inauguration. It was written by my current favorite atheist, Christohper Hitchens, who writes for Vanity Fair, and the Roger M. Mertz Media Fellow at the Hoover Institution in Stanford, California. Now he writes, "It is theoretically possible to make an apparent bigoted remark that is also factually and morally sound. Thus, when the Reverend Bailey Smith, one of the deputies of the late Jerry Falwell, claimed that God Almighty does not hear the prayer of a Jew, I was in complete agreement with him. This is because I do not believe that there is any supernatural supervisor who lends an ear to any prayer. In the same way," he writes, "if someone publicly charges that Mormonism is a cult, it is impossible to say that claim by itself is mistaken or untrue." He goes on to say, "However, if the speaker says that heaven is a real place, but that you will not get there if you are Jewish, or that Mormonism is a cult and false religion, but other churches and faiths are the genuine article, then you know a bigot has spoken. It's all in a day's work for the wonderful world of the American evangelical community, and one wishes them all the best of luck in their energetic fundraising and their happy, clappy Sunday churchianity mega feel-good fiestas." And then he continues, "However, do we want these weirdos and creeps officiating in any capacity at the inauguration of the next President of the United States?" Now, I'm no fan of Rick Warren, and if I got to choose who would lead a prayer of invocation at the inauguration of Obama, it would be a Christian pastor who actually preaches the law and the gospel of Jesus Christ, and who would pray as he always does, in the name that is above all names, Jesus Christ. But I do agree with Mr. Hitchens on 2 things. One, that God is a consuming fire apart from the only mediator between God and man, Jesus Christ. And without this mediator, there is no way to approach the throne of heaven through prayer or any other way. The second thing I agree with him on is that Mormonism is a false religion, and that those who believe it are wrong about who they think God is. Where I disagree with Christopher is that by believing that my view is right and other views are wrong makes me a bigot. The ironic thing here is that in Christopher's statement, he said, when someone believes that Mormonism is a cult and a false religion, but that other churches and faiths are the genuine article, then you know a bigot has spoken. Do we want these weirdos and creeps officiating in any capacity at the inauguration? Which first was uncomplimentary and pejorative towards Rick Warren and his kind. But in saying that, he also showed himself to be an intolerant bigot. Now, let me explain. First, what is a bigot? A bigot is one who is utterly intolerant of any differing creed, belief, or opinion. Okay, but to understand that, we have to get at the idea of what is it to be intolerant. And tolerance has undergone a metamorphosis of late. The word tolerance has come to mean that all views are equally valid. This implies that the opposite, all views are not equally valid, is intolerant. This is where Christopher gets tripped up. For if all views are equally valid, then even the view that all views are not equally valid is still a valid view. You see, the traditional definition of tolerance is very different. It is showing respect for the person with whom you disagree. If someone asked me, "Are you tolerant of those who engage in homosexual behavior?" I would say yes. And if they then said, "So you think homosexuality is normal and those who engage in it should be able to get married?" I would say, "Well, no, I just told you that I'm tolerant of it. And this means that while I think that it is morally wrong, I still respect the right of those who practice it to do so." In other words, if I agreed with their behavior, then there would be nothing to tolerate. You see, that's not being a bigot. That's being true to what one believes as a Christian. And so good on Rick Warren to point that out. Now Hitchens continues, he says, "I think we're all entitled to ask and keep asking every member of the Obama transition team until we receive a satisfactory answer. the following questions. He says, 1. Will Warren be invited to the solemn ceremony of inauguration without being asked to repudiate what he has directly said to deny salvation to Jews? No, wait a minute. Why on earth would a man who claims to be a Christian be asked to deny what is absolutely central to his system of belief? I refer you to Acts chapter 4, verse 12. There is salvation in no other one, for there is no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved. That name, of course, is Jesus, the Christ. The other question he asks is, will the American people be prayed into the next administration, which will be confronted by a possible nuclear Iran and an already nuclear Pakistan, by a half-educated, pulpit-pounding, raised in the belief that the Armageddon solution is one to be anticipated with positive glee? Again, Christopher, in his own special way, is showing himself to be a bigot here. For one, Rick Warren is well-educated, a master's degree at Southwestern Baptist Seminary, and a doctorate at Fuller in Pasadena. Secondly, I don't happen to share Rick's dispensational premillennial view on the biblical doctrine of eschatology or last things. However, I will respect him as a person in spite of the fact that I think he is wrong on that. Now here's the last statement I want to comment on that Christopher makes. He says, I would myself say that the inauguration doesn't need a clerical invocation at all, since, to borrow Lincoln's observation about Gettysburg, it has already been consecrated. But if we must have an officiating priest, let it be some dignified old hypocrite with no factional allegiance, and not a tree-shaking huckster and publicity seeker who believes that millions of his fellow citizens are hell-bound because they do not meet his own low and vulgar standards. Well, Christopher, you've just disqualified every committed Jew, Muslim, Buddhist, Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, as well as every Christian from giving any kind of an invocation. For they all believe contradictory things about God and would have factional allegiances. But it's funny that you would rather have a harmless old fart who believes in nothing and everything at the same time to offer a prayer in the name of a generic God that is sure to offend no one. Why bother in that case? I'm actually disappointed in you. I expected you to fight for the total eradication of any kind of prayer at the inauguration with every fiber of your being. Christopher, if you're willing to have a hypocrite up there officiating, then you might as well offer your own services to Obama. You who show your own intolerance and bigotry towards others who don't share in your atheistic and secular views, which, even though I don't agree with, I respect you and your right to voice. Know that I will continue to tolerate you, and I wish you a happy 2009.